into an unnecessary political crisis because there is a political party that wants to take advantage of its numerical strength to get an unfair advantage by trying to manipulate the constitutional system and to place people of its choice on the Electoral Commission, which is unacceptable and should be fought by every democratic person.
And so we have a relief for Cherera 4 that this particular meeting will not continue until further notice as they move to court. This is what they were seeking. Arab Kiro, your comment?
Well, yes, it may be a relief, but fundamentally I'm worried about monolithic thinking in a way that when I disagree with you, it doesn't mean we do not live in the same country. More so given the fact that the last election was almost a 50-50 situation, and therefore polarization of the public opinion, the way the Honorable Yusuf Hassan has said, is a dangerous precedent that we may be setting again. That instead of Kenyans engaging on a number of exercises, including the drought that's still ravaging the country, despite the rains, we are thinking again of going back to that polarized state of politics. It is not useful and it is not necessary at this particular time. And anything that will be acting to destabilize the commission is in bad faith. Bad faith in the sense that we expect next year there will be a review of the constituency boundaries with the possibility of adding a few more constituencies. Like in my county, I do expect that we might get 2 more constituencies. And that should be a fair process done by a commission that is respected. And that's why we are calling it independent. It should be independent from any political persuasion. It should be independent from any political machinations. And the situation that was obtaining in 1997 was such a suspicion of the government of the day until the former president, Mzee Moi, in his wisdom, accepted that we can have a situation where members of parliament can convert itself into various political outfits and come out with a commission that was going to be respected by both sides of the house. This is something that we should still be borrowing from that part of history, so that the commission that we have, we should have full confidence that it is our commission. Whether you are in government or you are in the opposition, you know that this is a commission that the results of their decision will be a reflection of the wishes of the majority of Kenyans. It is dangerous and it is not necessary at this time. If I really was to recommend, I would say let us cool our tempers on either side of the equation. Let the Kenya Kwanza team really get credible reasons and possibly get a tribunal that will be able to give justice to these commissioners. Because the way I saw the situation in Parliament is turning Parliament into a kangaroo court. A kangaroo court that is meant to achieve certain short-term interest. And short-term interest that may be expensive in the long run. Should President William Ruto win the next election by a commission selected by him, by a commission that will have gerrymandered the constituencies and created constituencies that will give him undue advantage nationally, it is going to be a very serious blemish in his career. So, because now we know we have 2 terms as a matter of law, And I think nobody should entertain any idea of thinking beyond the 2 terms. Let him have a clean slate, that the commission that is going to be put in place, whether it is post-Cherera or post-Chebukati, should be a commission that has the respect of all Kenyans. Yeah.
All right, let's hear from Wilson Sosua.
Yeah, I think my colleagues are reading too much, and I would like us to invite some strong level of honesty here. The evolution of the electoral bodies in Kenya is very clear. Now, at this era, we have what you call independent electoral and boundaries commission, independent, together with other commissions under Chapter 15. We have statutes and we have the Constitution. And we need the Constitution to be utilized. And in Parliament, there are 4 petitions. 4 petitions have been filed by citizens. It has not been filed by Kenya Kwanza. It has not been filed by President William Ruto. Nobody has done that. The petitions have been filed in Parliament. And the rules are clear. All of us have been members of Parliament. Hassan Yusuf is a member of Parliament, and I've seen him bring so many petitions. Once a petition is before the House, it's referred to the relevant committee to prosecute. And in the process of prosecution, the necessary parties will be invited. And I think that is a process. Are we trying to say we want to stop Parliament from doing what it ought to do? We conducted a general elections, and it ended up in the Supreme Court. And we all agreed, let the Supreme Court tender its judgment. And the judgment was rendered when we all respected. Now, if citizens feel that they have to petition over certain things, are we saying we want to stop citizens from exercising their sovereign power through Parliament by putting in petitions? Definitely no. President William Ruto, we know, has been very tolerant. He has been able to run government with a cabinet of outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, 2 cabinet meetings. Right now, the principal secretaries are all of them appointees of Uhuru Kenyatta and is running government. And I think that is, you will not find a president who can tolerate people in this manner. And so, therefore, the Supreme Court ruling gave enough order to Kenyans. What really happened at Bomas? Why did the Cherera 4 protest and work to, Serena, and give contrary information to Kenyans that could have plunged this country into chaos? The orchestrated, attempted coup against the sovereign will of the people of Kenya at Bomas. I was there myself. And the ruling from the Supreme Court vindicated Chebukati and put the Cherera 4 on the spot. And the Supreme Court judges said very clearly, if it is a matter of removing commissioners from office, there are set out procedures. And it's not the business of the court to do it. And the route is impeachment. If 4 Kenyans have filed competent petitions that have been admitted by Parliament and referred to JLAC, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, let the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee dispense of these petitions and table the report before the House as is required by procedure. Why are we afraid of impeachment? Even the president can be impeached. Anybody can be impeached. Nobody is immune to impeachment. And integrity, as provided for in Chapter 6 of the Constitution, is key. Okay. So I don't think we are trying to create a storm in a teacup. And however much Raila Odinga causes so many meetings across the country, it is not going to stop the process of JLAC. JLAC must finish its business, table the report in the House. All right. It shall be should the report indict the Cherera 4, because we cannot prejudice what the JLAC is doing. It can acquit, it can dismiss the petitions, or uphold the petitions. Then the president will
allow me to just butt in and ask you a question, because should also the JLAC, broaden its scope? You mentioned just the Cherera 4 from the judgment of the Supreme Court as well, but even Chebukati was the spotlight was on him as well. That the way he conducted the election itself, without even, especially with the verification of the results, he did it as a maverick. It was just him and him alone, me, myself, and I, without the consultation of the commissioners. If we are talking of fair play here, should we not hear both sides of the coin? We have the Cherera 4 and the Chebukati as well appearing before the jailer committee. Why is Chebukati left off the hook? Because the court also pronounced itself categorically.
I'm talking about the 4 petitions that have been filed. The 4 petitions filed against Cherera 4. If a petition is filed against Chebukati, the Speaker and the House will invoke its own wisdom and check whether it's admissible or not. But then if Chelak will find sufficient reasons for impeachment, because the law has no exception, the Constitution has no exception, and if Parliament shall adopt a report recommending impeachment of the 4, then there is no option. It will have to move to the President appointing a tribunal. And when the President appoints a tribunal, the tribunal will investigate and give its own recommendation. And those are the checks and balances in the Constitution. Why are we afraid about the checks and balances that are in the Constitution? If anything, instead of moving to cause public rallies and seek refuge within the people who are already struggling with the drought and a very bad economy, then they should file petition against Chebukati and the others, and so that it goes through the same process. Right. This must be a history of the rule of law and constitutional order. So how to anarchy? We cannot create laws, create a constitution, and then run away from the same laws and run away from the same constitution. That is not right.
Allow me to just rope in Hassan on that as well. Should that petition, I think also it's law of the mark, or you've never even thought about it as a meal. So if they have a petition against the 4, why not against Chebukati?
Well, it's ridiculous to argue in that way, because Chebukati and his team have finished their term. They're going home. Chebukati is not going to stay around.
Indeed, but if you go home and there was injustice that you had done before, that should not that be corrected?
Yes.
Just the fact that now the time has gone on doesn't mean that...
It is too late in the sense that we're now talking...
but for the sake of posterity, that is what I'm asking.
The horse has bolted out. So what we are looking at is the other commissioners. And what we are saying is that the campaign, the petition, and all the activities now that have been accelerated to bring this particular case to Parliament so quickly. Petitions take a long time. They don't come in just quickly. These particular petitions were pushed very quickly. They've been brought to the House very quickly to achieve a particular objective. It's a political vendetta against these 4 commissioners. It is unjust, and it's not right to crush the entire commission, to make the commission inoperable, because with the removal of these 4 commissioners means this country would not have one of its independent commissions in office. And if there was a crisis, for example, there were multiple by-elections, there will be nobody to carry it out. And secondly, it's going to create the impression, whichever way you look at it, that there's a scheme to put into place an electoral commission that is favorable to the ruling party. This is not very good for our democracy. It should not happen because we need to create trust, confidence in our commissions, and particularly the most important one, which is the Independent Electoral Commission. If we are going to go this route, then we're going to discredit whatever commission that comes into place. And don't forget, elections have consistently divided the people of Kenya right in the middle. If you look at the last election, 7.1 million voted for the president of the ruling party, 6.9 million voted for the presidential candidate of the opposition. And there are about 7 or 8 million Kenyans who didn't even bother to go to vote, simply because they do not believe in the electoral system. They don't have trust in the electoral system. So we're continuously eroding the trust in our constitutional system and our ability to be able to deliver fair and free elections. This is going to demoralize a lot of young people who perhaps will be put off from participating in our political system.
Right.
So we must work hard to make sure that the institutions that we place, the individuals we put in there, are people who have credibility and are not put into place because of political convenience by the ruling elite. If the Ruto regime were wrong in putting up these institutions, we should not be repeating the same wrongs. After all, I don't see any difference between the last government and this government. It's a continuation. It is the deputy president who is now the president. The majority of the members of parliament in the National Assembly, in the Senate, are from the old formation, the old political party. It's just the name that has changed from Jubilee to UDA. So to a certain extent, the mistakes of the past are also the mistakes of this particular ruling party. And we expect them to correct those mistakes and to put the country into the right path so that we have peace and stability in the future.
Right.
They should not be planting the seeds of discord now so that we live in peace and stability.
Right. So you'll agree with me that Albert Einstein says that insanity is just doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And we see this modus operandi of Azimio is just
garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out at the end of the day. So what do you expect to be diametrically different with the rallies that you want to put out there in Nairobi, in Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, and Kakamega? Don't you think Kenyans are really fatigued right now on this campaigning mode and the rallies? He's talking about drought. That yes, there's some sticking issues that we should be putting our heads and our necks out for, instead of going for rallies and abandoning our businesses at the end of the day. Are we really, do you think we are not past this junction?
I think that is a very biased take.
I'm not just asking you a question.
Because the president is flying in and out of the country. He's jet setting. He has traveled around. Recently he was in South Korea. I understand he flew back with a private plane. You're not looking at the cost to the economy and to the fact that we're not concentrating on the key issues of fixing our economy, dealing with the drought. But I think having rallies and doing protests are a fundamental part of our constitutional democracy. That is how we sell our ideas. That's how we conscientize, mobilize our population. And in fact, the leader of Azimio has built his reputation as a master politician who has been able to rally public opinion to his cause. He's fought for our democracy. He's fought for change all the time. And now that he has chosen to go back to the people, it's the democratic right of the leader and his movement Azimio. And I think this is a good idea. We should go back to the people.
But do we take a stock of what we're trying to put out there? Is it exceedingly beneficial?
Yes, of course.
What are the results? So that we learn better moving forward? Having
debate on the critical issues that are confronting our country, like the Independent Electoral Commission, who should be in it, what kind of shape it should have, is a right that Kenyans should have, and it is a fundamental right. Why would you consider it negatively? These are fundamental rights that are guaranteed in our constitution, and the leader of the opposition is using this opportunity to sell his ideas peacefully to the Kenyan people. What's wrong with that? Why do we want to suppress or mute the voice of the Kenyan people? Or do you think that politics only stops after the end of an election? It doesn't. Politics continues all the time. I think Azimio should not be shackled while the ruling party is violating a number of constitutional provisions, is not working for the Kenyan people in terms of addressing the critical problems of the cost of living and many other factors. Even on the maize issue, you know, this was a party that had pledged to support our farmers.
Okay, hang on. Let me just try and drop in Kipirua on this as well. Just some questions I'm asking, first of all. It was a no-show. I think we tried to hold rallies, just protesting on the same issue of IBC commissioners before. Even the turnout was dismal. If you go by that particular eventuality that you had, that people did not really mass as you expected, what makes you think people will come out right now?
Well, I know Raila is a very good mobilizer, but that's not really my main focus. My main focus is that we cannot have an excuse that because of the ravaging situation of famine and also other vagaries that are bedeviling our society, we run away from something that is fundamental, that is consolidation of democracy. The moment we open a window for any bad manners to seep into the house, you will not be able to close that window, because increasingly what we are witnessing today is an affront of the 2010 Constitution in a number of ways, including what the Honorable Soshon was saying.
But I'm in agreement with that. We're in agreement.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but what I'm asking, is that the only strategy that Azimio has?
Well, it's not the only strategy. We are also thinking of taking legal position in terms of other considerations. But we cannot refuse to take it to the court of public opinion, to tell the public this is what is happening. And the public also ought to understand that any tampering of this particular commission will entail a number of things. Change of the constituencies, increasing the number, gerrymandering, getting involved, and also the election of the next president is going to be done by the commission that now we are putting in place. And you see, it may look like it is too early. It is not too early, because that commission will be in office up to the next election. So these are fundamental issues that we cannot run away from. And to come back to this JLAC issue, it is done with the nudging of the government of the day. It is not just done out of the blues. Unless somebody has not been in this country for the last 40 years, we know the government of the day can ensure that they initiate a process that looks so innocent and so normal and so inconsequential, but with the results of ensuring that you bring a different political landscape. You remember there used to be people in this country who used to do choruses, one in Nakuru, one in Mombasa, one in Nandi, and many parts of the country, that they make certain choruses that look so innocent and far-fetched, but subsequent, that momentum, once it's picked, takes away a minister, takes away a new political dispensation. So I'm a student of politics, and I've been in this town slightly over 40 years as a practicing politician or actively involved in politics. And I know this could not have been done with a very, very innocent petitioner from the street. And you see, it is almost acquiring the same connotation, the same deliberations of the Supreme Court, the same atmosphere that was in Bomas. So it is a dangerous move, and that's why I was saying, let us cool our tempers. Let the Azimio cool their tempers. Let the Kenya Kwanza cool their tempers, so that we focus on relevant issues. The commission is not an imperative at this particular time. Whether you punish the Cherera for, whether you say it was going to precipitate a disaster, the results may not have been anything closer to what we expected. And therefore, the disaster was has already befallen us, because the results may not reflect the totality of the will of the people, because there were certain fundamental issues that were raised by the petitioners. They may not have reached the threshold, they may not have gotten the favor of the Supreme Court, but it is something, as Kenyans, we must engage honestly.
All right, let's hear from Wilson Sosion.
Yeah, listening to Honorable Yusuf and Honorable Kirwa, however much you belabor, you are not going to change the full course of the operation of the Constitution. And what is happening here? Of course, there is right to assembly. It's provided for in the Constitution. You can assemble, you can gather, as long as you have a message to the people. That is in the Constitution, and nobody is against that. But in terms of exercising the sovereignty and the power of the people can do it directly, or they can do it through the legislature, which is in operation. What Assembly are trying to tell us is that they are accepting defeat. They cannot canvass their matters legitimately and convincingly in the National Assembly. And so if they are defeated in the National Assembly, they should just swallow the humble pie and give up. You cannot seek an alternative of trying to use the people. That will not work. Are we trying to suggest that we want to suspend the operations of Parliament? Because what Asimi are trying to do is to undermine the parliamentary processes. And parliamentary processes are codified in law. And nothing is going to stop the petitions that are before the House, the CHELAC from prosecuting the matter. And what is a big interest in Cherera for? Why is Asimi so much obsessed with defending Cherera for? And if we get down to facts of matter, and by the way, the 4 petitions are not sponsored by Kenya Kwanza. No, they are brought by citizens exercising their constitutional right. Are we trying to say we want to stop citizens from filing petitions before the House? Definitely no. And if we are to get to fundamental facts, and I want the 2 members of Parliament who are here, Waziri and Mheshimiwa, when we listen to the script, the text of the statements that were issued at that very moment during tallying at Bomas, at KICC by Assimio leadership, and what was issued by Cherera team, word by word, is the same. That tells you about coordinated choreography. And never again in this country is anybody going to undermine the will of the people of Kenya. And if anybody is going to be elected, even by winning the presidency by 10 votes, that person will be the president. So some of these arguments that you want to take and create a narrative before the people is not going to work. And let me tell you, Kenya Kwanza, regimentally, in terms of mobilizing the people, is 10 or 20 times stronger than Assimio. And we are not ready to go that route at the moment. And if Kenya Kwanza, if Azimio are interested in constitutional order and the rule of law, then don't tell us about gatherings. We also have all the time to engage in such gatherings and mobilizing. But that is not the route to go. Let us accept the rule of law. There is an opposition in Parliament, which is christened as the minority. And they have spaces in Parliament. They sit in CHELAC. And if they don't agree with the report of the CHELAC committee, the standing orders permit a minority report. Why can't they do that? And then we have 2 reports in the National Assembly. Those are debating chambers. We cannot take the business of Parliament to confuse the public. The public, the economy is so bad, and this is attributed to Azimio and the handshake which bedevil this country. We are where we are. We mismanage our politics. And so therefore, the petitions that are before the House are not petitions of Kenya Kwanza. They are petitions of citizens whose names are known. And those citizens have appeared before the House. And their petitions must be heard. And so the full course of the process must be allowed. Thank you. So trying to paint it differently is wrong.
But Mheshimiwa Hassan, if I may ask, because this is, what is this obsession with Azimio that you want the Cherera for? And the question then becomes for them is also, what is the neurosis with them wanting their hearings to happen now, even when we have Cherera seeking that particular relief? Why are they in a tearing rush to hear the Cherera for?
Well, I think to comment on my brother, who is actually whom I respect as a Democrat, as a fighter for workers' rights, social justice. What he doesn't see here is a danger lurking, a danger that might damage our democracy. It is an abuse of power. The use of mechanisms of constitutional change to erode our democratic order is a danger that we must be alert to. We're now personalizing it, Cherera for Azimio. This is not just about Cherera for and Azimio, it's about our constitution and our rights and our democratic right and the rights of Kenyan to have independent bodies that can execute part of our constitutional democratic demands like elections in a fair and free manner. So the ruling party is using its power to undermine, it is using the tools of the constitution to undermine democracy. And if we are not careful, we're going to head to dictatorship, because the next IEBC commission, if the four Cherera are removed, is that the ruling party can put whatever commissioners it wants into the next electoral commission. And as a result of that selective process, which is not democratic, we're going to end up with rigged elections. I can tell you for sure that the next election will be rigged, because these people will be in place to execute the demands of the ruling party. And this is something we should not accept. It's not just about Cherera 4. It is about our constitutionality. It is about our democracy. And we must protect our democratic order. And if it demands going out to present these issues to the general public because they may not be aware of this lurking danger, then so be it, because it is a democratic process. Let's address this issue both in the countryside and in Parliament. We will continue the process.
Mm-hmm. So what really prevents Parliament right now? Because I know we've been here before when it comes to the electoral agency. Just prior to 2017, we had also the constitution of a new sort of a committee comprising of both Jubilee and by then ODM side of the it was a coalition, I think the NASA coalition then. What really prevents you now, aside from JLAC, to come up with such a constitution where everyone will feel there's a representation of both sides of the coalition to handle this particular matter? If you feel or they feel that JLAC is not fully, fully putting out justice as it should appear to be, why can't you constitute that? Because you did that before. You can have a special, standing order to try and create such a committee. What is preventing you to?
Because there's a rush at the moment. There's a mad rush to be able to bring this case to JLAC. JLAC is going to come out with its own recommendations without the input of Azimio, because Azimio is not represented in JLAC. They have walked out. And it will end up, as Mheshimiwa Kirwa has said, Parliament becoming a kangaroo court, not representative of our political diversity and our political representation in Parliament. And because one side feels that it has the numbers and the power to push this particular case, it is doing it as quickly as it can get that opportunity and remove these commissioners without due process.
So does your working out also stonewall the whole process, or the process continues apace without even Azimio members?
But what does that say about our democracy? That one side would determine for the rest of our country. Do you agree with that kind of view?
From working out of it, if you don't
because
have any immediate measure
if the chair and the membership is not listening and is not looking for consensus and is not giving opportunity for the other side of Parliament, the opposition, the legal opposition, to have its input and to share its ideas, why would we be sitting to endorse a decision that has already been made out of Parliament at State House or some other sitting? Why would you give legitimacy to such an exercise?
This is the same script that we had, Mheshimiwa, in 2017. You went to court seeking nullification of the presidential results. You're given an opportunity by the Supreme Court And then you're a no-show again. So the same script playing out with JLAC, that now there's an opportunity to solve a particular matter, you walk away, and you don't have any other recourse towards that. The process continues with or without you. So if the final decision, you will say, oh, it besmirks of injustice and bias, you're the one who actually given that particular spawning ground of that biasness to grow.
Well, I think it is important to remind ourselves of the short history of Kenya, that the larger part of President Kibaki's regime, he presided over the destiny of this country under the old constitution. But there were so many remarkable changes that he brought in, including freeing of airwaves and the freedom, the space that we got, and it was under the old constitution. Now, this reminds us of what we term as constitutions without constitutionalism. You can have a constitution, you can have a constitutional process, but without infusing the constitutionalism that is required for that particular process. You can take us through the JLAC, you can take us through tribunal, but all is choreographed to achieve certain results. And I can be sure, as the sun will rise tomorrow, or the sun will set today, that whatever is desired by the current president will be choreographed through this JLAC, through the due process, and achieve the same results of removing the 4 commissioners. What is the hurry? When we knew that there was going to be a change in January for the 3 commissioners, and therefore we would also be able to reflect on a number of things. And if there is a need to take these commissioners through whatever they are taking them through, they should be taken with the respect of the official opposition. But this is a situation where Kenya is being converted back to one-party state. One-party state in the sense that as we are today, we are less than 5 months away from the election. And a sizable number of members of parliament have already been moved from Azimio to the ruling coalition for the purpose of beefing the numbers and creating a monolithic parliament that will only be thinking according to the wishes of the leader of that particular formation. It is a narrative that is so common. Any problem done by Jubilee for the 10 years is only attributed to the handshake that took place the last 2 years of President Uhuru's government. Any good thing that was done by Jubilee in 10 years is attributed to the presence of the current president in that formation. You've heard my colleague say that, and it is said every day whenever there is a problem. Even the drought, they might blame it on handshake. Even the issue of famine, they might blame it on handshake. Even the issue of borrowing, President Ruto himself has been blaming on the handshake that they have borrowed because of the handshake. And yet, it was because they opened the infrastructure beyond the capacity of the country. And therefore, they had to borrow.
Right, thank you.
So I think some of these stories, we cannot just resolve by trying to go again to the whatever was said in the court, whatever was said in the court of public opinion. What we need to do is to be passionate about the future of this country.
Right, thank you. Briefly, Sosio, we are winding up, then we get headline thoughts from Mheshimiwa, of course, Hassan,
yes, and
you.
I think when it is 2 against 1, give a little bit of time, otherwise it's going to be a one-sided debate. One debate, the law is an us. We have a law, we have the laws, and we have the constitution. And we cannot at this moment run away from it and create unnecessary statements. Number 2, the provision of impeachment of any person, any state officer, is provided for in the constitution, including the president. Anybody can be impeached. And the initiative of impeachment of the Cherera 4 is not the government initiative. This is what the 2 legislators are not telling us.
You've said
it is the citizens. Number 2,
but how do you know?
What are the vested interest of
Okay.
Allow me.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please. What are the vested interests of Azimio and Cherera for that they are so impatient they can't allow a process of parliament to operate? And there is the question of hurrying, I don't think there is any issue about hurrying. When a petition is placed before the House, it is committed to the relevant committee. That is what happened. Petitions were filed before the House. It is not. And the Speaker committed to the JLAC. Now, are we trying to tell Kenyans that we should begin losing confidence in our institution like Parliament, the committees of the House that facilitate public participation, that prosecutes issues from the people, including petition? And let me come to the issue of walkout. Walkout from a committee is not recognized by the standing order. You are construed as being absent from the committee. So really you cannot cheat the public that you have walked out because the committee is impartial. The committee does exist, and they were constituted by the same House and passed by the same House. And the House is not going to be dissolved until 2027. It will function. And the provisions of standing orders, if you sit in a committee and you don't agree with the resolutions of that committee, you are allowed to make a minority report. Why can they pursue that route so that the people of Kenya can see them doing that?
Fair enough.
But you see, if you think you are so weak, you can't you can't prosecute that process. The option of getting to the public is a very weak way at this time.
Thank you.
In Kenya. So I think what my colleague legislators should accept, including Azimio, let's allow our institutions to work and stop labeling these petitions as being sponsored by Kenya Kwanza. No, these are petitions by Kenyans.
Thank you.
Those names are not, and they have appeared before the House. Who knows anyway? The petitioners might lose at the end of the JLAC process.
Thank you.
And the report can be tabled. So indeed.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from Hassan, your headline thoughts.
Indeed, we're heading to another tragedy. Our priorities are wrong. As every day goes by, Kenya Kwanza manifesto is shrinking and becoming meaningless, and their key pledges are falling by the roadside, just like they were roadside declarations. And so I think there is a really need to adjust so that we can gain momentum in which we can do real changes in our country. I really want this government to succeed because it's important for our country and for our people. But the way things are going, everything seems to be falling behind or been abandoned. Agriculture is a good example. You know, they promised that they would support our local farmers and increase production. Now we're hearing millions and millions of tons of maize has been imported into the country, depressing the local market when there is so much maize available within our farming community. And what you hear is ultimatums and threats against the farmers, as if this was a colonial system in which you can threaten someone who has taken all the trouble to invest and produce for food for this country.
Thank you.
So we must respect and support our farmers.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Well, I just want to remind Kenya Kwanza that they are government of the day, and being the government in town, they ought to spend more time thinking of their manifesto and how that manifesto will be relevant to the lives of Kenyans. For example, the issue of maize, and I saw the head of public service pretend to know it because he was also minister in the same ministry that I had been before, to know about how to deal with shortages. The maize that is available in Kenya today is in excess of 30 million bags, and that is enough to feed this country for the next 6 months. Within which period, you can now prepare a program of handing over in terms of importation. And therefore, this importation is ill-timed, it is unnecessary, and it is an exercise in futility.
All right, thank you. Those are our headlines. Susion, briefly, I think you had wound up.
No amount of misinformation of the public and choreography of scripts from Azimio is going to derail the implementation of the plan by Kenya Kwanza. It's the plan. Whether it's about the hustler funds, it will work. and the hustler at the bottom, the mama mboga and the rest will have resources to move businesses. That is going to be implemented with precision and with accuracy.
Thank you.
The debate on the maize is just but transaction of misinformation. The fact of the matter is Kenya is projected to produce close to 30 million bags of maize.
I think
what is required is 45 million bags. So there is need for additional importation of maize. That's a fact.
Thank you.
To bridge the gap. And those are matters that are being handled logistically and accurately by the government. The farmers of Kenya shall remain protected and their input subsidized and their produce subjected to guaranteed minimum returns.
Thank you. So we need to wind up on that. Thank you so much, Kipruto Arapkirwa. I really appreciate you coming through this morning. Also, Wilson Susun, thank you for coming through this morning. Yusuf Hassan, thank you for coming through this morning. Quite a discussion we've had there. And we wish also to reassure Kenyans that at least we have the CS Kuria who has given an ultimatum. Is it 72 hours notice to farmers?
Illegal ultimatum.
Yes.
Illegal ultimatum.
Illegal ultimatum.
He has no powers.
He has no powers.
Mudavadi has made a lot of clarity. So don't worry. Things will be okay.
So, but they're reading from a different school.
Those are just, no, they are overstated.
Where is
those statements are missing nothing. The media is good in exaggerating statements and creating narrative.
Thank you very much for your valid company. Yes, we cross over now to Mombasa Road, where Sports Chat is awaiting Jeff Mugire to just prime you on what is happening with World Cup right now. By the way, Ghana, Cameroon, what are you rooting for? Which country are you voting for?
Me?
Cameroon. Senegal. Ghana. We were a runner. Rudisha has returned. Thank you very much for your valid company. Have a good day.